I saw you at the Newport Folk Festival a few years ago, and it was the year that you were all paying tribute to Pete Seeger, and I think it was ended up being his last time to the festival. And I don't remember everyone who was in the group. I know it was you, and I know it was Ellis Paul, and you were talking a little bit about what it was like having Pete Seeger as a neighbor, going through some of your recycling and making sure everything was sorted properly.
Right.
And to kind of go back to what you were just saying about this idea of the human, the person, and the brand, I'm always fascinated by people who have interactions with these larger than life characters and sort of trying to find out that thing about them that makes them all the more human and relatable. As someone who was fortunate a lot, enough to live near the Seeger family and interact with them, what was Pete and his wife like in your town, in your neighborhood?
I think you just put your finger on something that I think is really important for us to know about some people. Sometimes a person and their profession and their brand are so interwoven from the get-go that you can't pull it off. I mean, and because Pete was so disdainful, of course, of people who had to, of a lot of different kinds of posturing and a lot of different kind of hype, and but at the same time, I mean, he was exactly what you thought. He showed up in a shirt and you're like, didn't I see you in that shirt 50, 100 years ago? And he really did write songs while he was chopping wood. And I went up and visited him to learn a song. Because basically, if Pete asked you to do something, you just did it. So I went up to his house.
Of course.
and we were in his living room, and it looked like graduate school housing. There was a big spider plant like draped all around the ceiling. There was a rag rug. There was a wood stove. We were on, couches and chairs, but there was, that were distressed. Totally comfortable, totally great. Toshi kind of coming in and out, going, oh, have fun, kids. And Pete digressing, pulling out a book, showing me something, explaining something about the song, being extremely kind and facilitating, teaching me the song and letting me really work on a harmony without getting impatient. All of those things that you would hope he was. And above us, there was kind of a mezzanine overlook thing with all of these file cabinets. And at any given time, 2 or 3 people were there. Just constant filing, constant pulling, constant filing. So the archives of his life and what that had been in the world were this little industry happening above us, like a meta, it was like a visual meta. And then there we were with the spider plant and the rag rug. And when I was moving into my house now that I'm in, I had this kind of like, gosh, do I look like a grown-up? Do I look like a grown-up? I was just taking all my friends' secondhand furniture, and I thought, well, there's Pete. And I felt so better because he was that guy who really, it was as if, he made this big thing of money and he goes, I'll take this much and the rest will go to the world. And that's how I try to be now, especially during the pandemic. I was like, how can I pare down and, maybe put some patches on the patches and really, homestead a little bit more here. And so he influenced all of us. And I'm suddenly realizing why I always felt self-conscious of his disdain for people who were so self-branding. And yet I never worried when I felt a little self-branding around him, because I just thought, I don't even think he'd notice. Like he's so genuinely himself. He just showed up wherever you asked him to show up. And you'd see him all over the place, and he'd be standing right next to you before he went on stage. And there was no pretense. And it did help a lot of us say, I could be like that. Why can't I be like that? Why can't we all be like that? So, and he was also very ideologically driven in terms of thinking. if we can find spaces and places to make music together and make food together and maybe make food and music together, we will be transformed into exactly who we want to be. And he lived that faith, which was a beautiful and very refreshing thing to be a part of.